And thanks so much for being with us here for Border Reports. I'm Daniel Marin, an anchor at KXAN in Austin. This is our show where we take a deep dive on what's happening on the border with our team of experienced on-the-ground journalists with BorderReport.com. And joining me this week is Julian Resendiz in El Paso, Texas, across the border from Ciudad Juarez. And then in South Texas, we have Sandra Sanchez with us. And this week, we're going to be talking about AI. We're going to be talking about ICE's use of AI, artificial intelligence, also Mexico's use of AI. We're also going to talk about ICE in schools. We have an update when it comes to the Supreme Court, and also the black painted barrier at the border that is now arriving at the border itself. So we'll talk about all that. But first, we do want to get to that breaking news, the big story out of Utah after conservative activist Charlie Kirk was shot and killed during his own event at Utah Valley University. The FBI is now offering a $100,000 reward for information leading up to the arrest of the shooter, who is, at the time of this taping, still on the run. This reward comes after the FBI released this photo of the person of interest in the case. Now, Kirk, of course, a very popular figure in MAGA world, also viewed very highly by President Trump. He was known for his influence with young conservatives and also Republicans. We want to talk now, though, about his views on immigration, because that is the focus of this show here at Border Report. So when it comes to immigration, Kirk was criticized by opponents for his comments related to undocumented and illegal immigration. In a public comment that I have here on X, Kirk told a Fox News anchor, quote, "Perhaps no form of legal immigration has so displaced American workers as those from India. Enough already, we're full. Let's finally put our own people first," end quote. And then during another interview with Fox News, Kirk praised President Donald Trump's immigration policies and deportations, saying that the policies have resulted in, quote, reverse migration. He has another quote here, Kirk saying, quote, "If people are voluntarily leaving 6 to 7 months into a presidential term to go back to their home country, maybe they weren't actually fleeing oppression the way they say they were," end quote. And we're also hearing from Alianza Americas. That is a nonprofit organization based in Hispanic and Latino American and Caribbean immigrant communities. They have condemned the killing. They're calling it a political assassination. They have a statement that says, in part, quote, "Political violence is the reflection of the erosion of the social contract. Unnecessary aggressive rhetoric and actions against those with opposing political ideas has brought us here." Alianza Americas calls on leaders at the federal, state, and local levels to set a clear example with their own words and actions. So we will leave it there for now when it comes to the assassination of Charlie Kirk. Kirk, I should say. Right, now let's go ahead and talk about artificial intelligence when it comes to the border. We've got ICE and also Mexico deploying the use of this rapidly evolving technology. Let's go ahead and bring in Sandra. Let's start with some of the headlines. Sandra, new AI technology being used by ICE. Tell us about this.
Yeah, well, actually, just last week, DHS signed a contract with an AI provider called Clearview AI. It was almost a $10 million contract. This is according to some reports, including Forbes. And this will use controversial facial recognition technology with ICE. Their Homeland Security Investigations team will be able to use this technology to gather images that are scraped from social media and public websites to match for use in investigations. Now, it is controversial technology, and ICE says it's to be used for investigations involving assaults of law enforcement officers as well as child sexual exploitation cases. There are some people who worry about the use of this as far as how it might violate privacy. Clearview actually has been fined over $50 million by regulators in the United Kingdom and Europe for breaching privacy rules there. So this is just getting off the ground here. ICE does use some facial recognition tool called Mobile Fortify to ID undocumented individuals, and they also use technology at the ports of entry, which Julian's going to talk about. But this is kind of a next step.
And you said this contract signed just last week, right? So this is fresh.
This is brand new, right? So we're not even sure if it's actually in the field yet. As you mentioned, AI technology is constantly
Mhm.
evolving. I don't understand it very well, but this is the next generation of what they're going to employ.
All right. So, Julian, we mentioned ICE using facial recognition. They have been using facial recognition. Mexico also using facial recognition. How were they using this technology?
Hi, Daniel. Yeah, I mean, this is technology that is being applied on the U.S. side of the border, on the border itself, meaning the ports of entry, and now more recently in Mexico. Um, I think we're comparing a little bit of apples to oranges when it comes to the concerns about privacy in a society that, especially on the U.S. side of the border, that has low crime, where
Mm.
people genuinely can get concerned about well, why am I being tracked? What's going to be done with my likeness, my image? Why does the government want to follow me around? On the Mexican side, though, we have a different issue. On the Mexican side, just across from El Paso, and El Paso is one of the safest cities in America, we have one of the most dangerous cities in the world, which is Juarez, Mexico, where last year more than 1,100 homicides were committed, where 15 years ago, twice that number was being, or three times that number of homicides were being reported. So here they started implementing the use of license plate readers, facial recognition technology, and just cameras all over the place for the purpose of going after criminals. And some results, what you're seeing on your screen right now is a truck that was stolen on the US and was recovered on the Mexican side in Juarez, thanks to the use of these cameras and this technology. We have other examples. I do believe we have a video of how police were able to identify this robber, a man who's robbing a woman outside um, what appears to be an ATM
Hmm.
location, and they were able to apprehend the subject thanks to the images from that camera. This other example that you're seeing right now is a robbery to a money exchange house, an attempted robbery to a money exchange house. Because of the plate readers, they were able to follow the vehicle. Because of artificial intelligence, which means this camera, this utility pole caught this image and then kind of handed off the information to another camera further down the road that tracked the vehicle. And eventually, police were able to locate the same vehicle in the neighborhood and apprehend the suspects. So that's how AI is working on the Mexican side. There are some privacy concerns.
Sure.
I have an editorial piece here that the president of the Mexican Employers Confederation wrote, expressing some of the same concerns about the privacy issues. Why are they tracking me? Why are they tracking my trucks? Why are they tracking my company vehicles? But like I said, on the other side of the border, the priority is combating crime, combating the cartel, and as far as I know, most citizens don't have a problem with that as of right now.
Sure. Robbery by bicycle, by the way, in one of those videos there at the ATM. Julian, you also
Yeah.
have an update for us on the Sentinel Tower. Now, this is going to be the tallest building in the El Paso, Ciudad Juarez area. This is going to be used for monitoring, kind of the nerve center of monitoring illegal activity there. First of all, get us up to speed, remind us what this tower is meant to do, and then what's the update?
All right, so this tower is the centerpiece of the state of Chihuahua, the Mexican northern border state of Chihuahua's plan to combat the cartels, to bring down crime, especially kidnapping and murder, which are the biggest concerns. So they decided a couple of years ago to build this 20-foot tall structure in Juarez, Mexico. And this structure, when it's finished next year, it's going to be the central world about the information from about 10,000 cameras throughout the state of Chihuahua, which is the biggest in Mexico. It is the Texas of Mexico, are going to be sending information. And there, officers are going to be able to respond, to identify trends, to identify suspect vehicles. And more often, as is the case in the interior of Chihuahua, when there's a mass shooting between drug trafficking groups somewhere in the mountains or in some town, they will be able to pinpoint exactly how many people were involved, where they were headed, and thus effect a more precise and response. Now, as far as the tower itself, let me tell you, Daniel, it's being built right in the center of downtown Juarez, right next to a former bull ring, which is no longer operating. I have been up to the sixth floor, going up scaffolding at the time, mind you. The elevators were not working,
Huh.
and you see the images that I was able to get. It's going to be a massive centerpiece of the public safety initiative. All the intelligence is going to be gathered there from all over the state. And most of all, it's going to be a symbol of law enforcement, reassuring citizens, hey, we got your back, we're here. The building, last I heard, is still not about 70%, 75% complete
Okay.
to 85% to 80% complete, which means that it won't be in operation until probably next year, sometime early next year. But already, a lot of those cameras, 1,000 in Juarez, 2,500 throughout the state of Chihuahua, are operating in helping local police solve kidnappings, apprehend suspects. Now, I also understand there were some concerns about how the AI and the cameras can be used to track migrants. As far as I know, I still have not seen many cameras close to the river, close to the border wall. I'm sure eventually they will be there. What I understand they're going to be tracking is mostly the smugglers. And we got to remember that when a group of people approaches the U.S. border from the south, very often, more often than not, there's what they call a foot guy, basically a smuggler, a low-level smuggler. You can tell him apart because he looks different from the group. He talks different from the group.
Mm.
He dresses different from the group. He might have tattoos identifying him with any of the particular cartels. So as far as I know, that's the people that they're going to be using this technology on. Get
Quick.
his face because he's going to be back. We want to know where he's going.
Gotcha. Okay. Quick question about the tower too, though. Coordination with the American side. I know sometimes, someone will commit a crime on the U.S. side and then they'll flee to Mexico, or maybe vice versa. Even is there going to be coordination between the U.S. and the Mexican side when it comes to the capabilities of this tower?
I'm glad you asked me that, Daniel. Yeah, this morning I was trying to get more information from the Chihuahua State Police. Wasn't able to. However, publicly, yeah, they have openly said, top Chihuahua State officials have openly said that they are cooperating not only with federal officials when it comes to identifying and looking for criminals, but also notifying them whenever something's going on along the border that might affect their side of the border. For instance, a large gathering of a crowd, or maybe an act of violence in which a suspect is trying to go across the border. So there is that coordination. The extent of it, I'll be honest, I haven't been able to get the extent of that coordination with them. I don't know exactly how much they're going to coordinate. The only thing that I know is that they tell me that we're going to observe the limits of Mexican law when it comes to this.
All right.
Whatever that means.
Yeah, sure. Yeah. All right. We'll see when this tower is complete what happens. All right. Let's take a quick break. When we come back, we're going to talk about ICE in schools. Stay with us. And welcome back to Border Report Live. Okay, so this week the Supreme Court lifted a restraining order that is going to clear the way for federal agents to conduct sweeping immigration raids in Los Angeles. Civil rights groups, though, they fear that this is going to be more racial profiling, particularly when it comes to maybe possibly schools. So, Sandra, what's your reporting on this?
Yeah, actually, there's a coalition of civil rights groups as well as migrant advocacy groups who this week they held an online webinar, and they have released a toolkit, and they are encouraging school districts nationwide to participate, to download this toolkit, to know what their rights are, and to basically know who can enter a school and how to prevent and protect the campus environment. They want to make sure that if an ICE agent has a signed judicial warrant, a warrant signed by a judge to enter a school, which is the only way they can enter, that anyone else who might not necessarily be the target of that particular case is not caught up, that other children's faces are protected. They also are urging that school districts not work with any law enforcement agencies that have 287G agreements. These are agreements that law enforcement agencies have with Immigration Customs Enforcement to work with them, either sharing data or maybe even on assisting raids. I think we have a quote from a woman with the Crystal Moore Clemens with the Children's Defense Fund. She was speaking about kind of what their goals are.
We want school districts and campuses to essentially have sanctuary resolutions, meaning that they're going to commit to not assisting ICE and not provide student immigration information. Because we want that to be district-wide expectations across the country. We want school districts to have a school preparedness plan or some sort of response plan to law enforcement. Every school district should have some sort of plan in which staff is trained, not just teachers, right? We need our custodial staff. We need our cafeteria staff. We need everyone, because it's the school community that needs to be able to speak out against this. We also want, schools to have clear policies on verifying credentials, right? That needs to be very clear. Even providing materials on know your rights, whether it be, a parent-teacher conference or something, just having that information readily available for families is paramount.
Hey, Sandra, you mentioned this online toolkits. What's in the kits? Suggestions? What's in the kit?
I downloaded it. It's pages and pages of information, basically for any scenario. If an ICE agent is at a bus stop, for instance, how parents should notify school administrators who have kind of a school phone tree to let people know. If someone is spotted near the crosswalk, they're saying the crossing guard should have a walkie-talkie and communicate with, or maybe a cell phone in today's tech world, and communicate with school officials that, hey, this person is out here. Again, notifying parents who might not want to show up and pick up their child or have their child walking around in this environment where they could be photographed. They're saying take down, dismantle surveillance. We were just talking about AI and facial recognition. They're saying take down surveillance within schools because it can recognize these children and the parents who come through the schools. They're saying take down the metal detectors. I didn't quite understand that. They're saying don't make it a militarized area. Basically implement these protocols to know what to do, practice this, be ready. Make sure you scrutinize, as she mentioned, any identification of somebody coming to the school. Make sure that they are who they say they are, and that indeed the warrant is signed by a judge, because you cannot enter a school with just a warrant. It has to be signed by a judge. And then of course they were saying publicly take a stand, speak out against this. So they actually have their agenda. They do not believe in, these ICE enforcement raids. And so they are speaking out against this. I think the most controversial thing is to cut ties with the 287G program, because we have over 1,000 law enforcement agencies throughout the country that are participating in these programs in one way or another. That's a huge swath of the law enforcement within our country.
Are you aware of any school police forces, any school district police forces that have 287Gs with ICE?
No, and neither are they. We have not heard of any. Now, so that the question is basically any K through 12 education facility that has a school police system on campus that would be affiliated with 287G? No. But there are some school systems that are very small and they don't have their own police force. Sure. So they affiliate with the local police, and maybe the local police are affiliated with. An example they gave was Maricopa County, Arizona, which, for years we've talked about, and its close ties and affiliations with DHS. And they were, saying that's an example of this information could get shared and could harm families who don't want to be to be found. The entire a link to the toolkit, we have it up on our website.
Yeah, I was just looking at your story here. Yeah, you do have a link to that toolkit at borderreport.com. All right, so Sandra, also, while I have you here, tax information not to be shared with the Department of Homeland Security. This is a federal court in D.C. What did they have to say?
Right, and it's temporary, but a ruling that came down this week, and it blocks the Trump administration, the IRS, from sharing this information if of taxpayers. Now, if they want to, they have to go through the plaintiffs in this lawsuit and give them 24 hours notice, as well as the court. It's basically a way to shut down the dissemination of this information. Several nonprofits sued the Department of Homeland Security from getting this information, blocking the IRS from disseminating this information. As you remember, back in April, the Trump administration announced that it was going to give away this information. So Democracy Forward CEO Sky Perryman kind of represents this group that is suing, and he says, I'll read you a quote: "Actions to share taxpayers' most confidential data with ICE are a betrayal of the promises our government has made to Americans, and they threaten the people's trust in the tax system. We are grateful the court has issued this interim order to stop the threats to core privacy rights while the court considers a more formal order." Now, they have the defendants, have until October 24th to issue challenges to this administration. This case is long, and it's going to go forward. It's going to take quite some time, but for the time being, it looks like it will stop this. You know, I did a little research, and part of the taxes that undocumented immigrants pay into the U.S. system is pretty staggering. Latest data we have from 2022 shows they paid $25.7 billion to Social Security, $6.4 billion to Medicare, and $1.8 billion to unemployment insurance. And people involved in this suit say it's always been, you know, they do it honestly because they want to pay what they need to pay, but they've always believed that they were secure in not having their personal information shared out. And so now the question, of course, becomes, will they continue to pay these taxes if the information is shared? And obviously that would hurt our budget and the money's coming in.
All right, Sandra, thank you very much. And don't go anywhere, because when we come back, we want to talk about this update on the new black border barrier. Stay with us. All right, welcome back to Border Report Live. I'm Daniel Marin. Let's go ahead and check back in with Sandra. Sandra, okay, so we had the DHS Secretary, Noem. She was recently in Santa Teresa, New Mexico, basically the El Paso area. Not too long ago, she had this a big to-do about how they're going to be painting the border fence, the border bollards, the wall, the barrier. They want it black for reasons that it's going to be hotter, and it's just going to be harder for migrants to try to get around. You have an update as far as there in the Rio Grande Valley, the black bollards, they're arriving, but they're already painted black?
Yeah, spotted. We have a stockyard here in Mission, Texas. Here's some video I shot earlier this week, and the black bollards are here. You can see right there in that shot, the black bollards in the front. The rusted ones are in the back. That's the normal ones we've always seen. So the bollards have arrived. They're already painted. They're ready to go up. What's interesting about this stockyard, it's off a kind of a busy highway, Conway Road, which leads right to the border, is during the Biden administration, the supplies in this stockyard had dwindled to, at one point, I barely saw a bollard or two. And now it's really stocked back up. I mean, it's puffed back up. There are a lot of bollards that are there. They're obviously ready to put them up. On previous shows, I showed video and mentioned new wall that's going up in Roma, Texas, which is already black, so it doesn't need painting. But here we're ready for new wall. Is just to recap, Secretary Noem has waived dozens of environmental regulations to allow miles of new border bollard to be put up here in the Rio Grande Valley through federal wildlife refuges. That's raised a lot of controversy by environmentalists. When she came to Santa Teresa, New Mexico, and I believe Julian covered it, she actually got out the paintbrush and she started painting the bollard there, right? But she is saying that if it's hotter, it's going to be harder to climb and basically hurt anyone who tries to climb it in this triple-digit heat that we continue to have here on the southern border. She was joined by Michael Banks. He's the Border Patrol chief. He's actually from the Rio Grande Valley, and he was saying, yeah, we're going to have all the bollards black because we want to deter illegal immigration. So this is proof of it. They're also, in addition, going to beef up their security cameras, their facial recognition, their AI technology that they have. Earlier when Julian was talking about how the cameras spot people on the southern side, I can tell you, every time I approach the border wall, I am on so many cameras. There's a central facility that all the data goes to. And, I just kind of wave up at the wall knowing that I must on 10 different cameras at any given time. I have to say, one time I was attacked by a dog on the border wall, and within seconds, inside of a minute, was Border Patrol agents actually came in a truck and got the dog and helped me out. So, I know that it was because I was on all these cameras. So definitely technology is used and it's in so many ways that we can't even comprehend, things we don't see. As we approach the Falfurrias checkpoints, they have the ability to weigh our vehicles and know how much they should weigh based on the type of vehicle that we're driving. And if it's substantially heavier, well, they suspect, you have more in there than you should. And they refer you to secondary. And as Julian was, saying, that the AI technology and that they're using here along the border is just more than I can understand, but it's forever growing.
Amazing to think that we're still kind of in the infancy of artificial intelligence. We'll see where we are a year from now, 5 years from now. All right, Sandra, Sanchez, Julian, Resendiz, thank you so much for joining us today. And thank you out there for watching. Just a reminder that we do have podcasts. Anywhere you can get your podcast, look for Border Report on Apple, Spotify, and YouTube. I'm Daniel Marin. Thanks for joining us for Border Report Live. We will see you tomorrow.
I was